This is The Upside, some shasha with wars. We're having all the important conversations this afternoon. Joining us now to talk all things parenting is a parenting expert, Ayanda Tetyana. She is our guest this afternoon as we talk about something that I kind of always think about, because my mom mentioned this to me once when she was talking to us about her childhood. The fact that she was raised by two incredible parents who never had them conform to gender roles. So there were 10 children
10, wow,
in my mom's family. So my mom is one of 10, yes. And she spoke about there were 3 girls and the rest were boys. Exactly.
Wow.
How her parents raised them as everyone did all the chores and all the work in the house. So it was never you're a guy, you should be outside mowing the lawn. Do you know what I mean? If you're a lady, you're inside cooking, cleaning. Everyone did all of the work. They had a team thing going. It was amazing. And so she always said that that's how she was raised. And I thought it's so fascinating because we don't see that often in African households. And that's the conversation this afternoon about how gender roles apply to kids and what the status quo is this day and age.
And also I think it's important to kind of rewrite the African narrative about how we are raising our kids. And I'm hoping Ayanda will give us a little bit of updates regarding that. I mean, how do we even enforce kind of the gender roles or maybe the swapping of gender roles in our households? As parents, how do we do that?
Sure. I mean, it's hi everyone. Hi,
Hello, darling.
You know what? It's so important to bear in mind the time we're living in. So a lot come to be a norm, right? In terms of what men do, what women do, it's all based on where we come from historically. It's based on some of the opportunities that we have previously. You know, women were supposed to stay at home and they're supposed to be the ones who are taking care of the children. We all know now, right, that as women we get to work, we get to do everything. And I think it's fair that we get to a point where even men are equally contributing in terms of just the nurturing and the taking care of children. So how then does that look like in you as a parent as you raise your child in today's world and you're preparing them for that bigger picture, you're preparing them for the adult world? You know, I always say to parents, it's very important that you're intentional to say the environment that you have in your home is preparing your children for this bigger world. And how do you make sure that you equip them? You want to make sure that they can do as much as possible, that they're useful both at washing dishes, both at doing whatever needs to be done in the whole household. I mean, I heard the example that you made when we started out where, you know, you have a household where there's a whole lot of collaboration.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of everyone is just contributing. And it just becomes so beautiful because, you know, we don't know what happens in the future. Maybe your son ends up marrying someone who's a doctor, whatever type of profession, and he may need to spend more time nurturing and caring and being a primary caregiver for the children. Imagine if we have not taught them how to wash dishes, how to do basics like sweep. You know, these are really important because of that, because we're thinking about the bigger picture and we're understanding that this home that we have are preparation for the adult world.
But I think one would argue, though, that is it not also maybe counterproductive to also enforcing what men are supposed to do in society versus women? I think, you know, the fight is kind of creating the balance between the chores and life in general, that, yes, there are shared responsibility, but there are specific roles that women need to do and what men need to do. Are we not blurring the lines a little bit when we address the issue of femininity and masculinity, even in how we participate in society?
I think that one's going to be a very individual thing for every parent, you know, to be really intentional about. But I also want to say that, you know, you also want to make sure that if you're raising your son as patriarchal and as masculine as you want them to be, you want them to know how to wash dishes. You want them to how to cook something for themselves. You know, we can't possibly be still in this year and age preparing our children for 10 years, 15 years time to be the people who are going to say, I need to get married because I can't cook. I need to get married because I can't wash my own underwear. And it's really important to if you're a father and you're listening to this and you have a teenage daughter, start teaching them how to change the tire, start teaching them those tough little skills that will teach them that resilience. Because should things happen, maybe they need to go study abroad and they have to leave their partners, so many things happen. For me, it's all about just preparation for reality. So we just don't have this guarantee that we'll always have the other partner who's going to do the other part. So why not make sure that your child has the tools to do as much as they can? And if you're a mom and you're a dad and you're able to teach your son how to bake, you're able to teach your daughter how to get on top of the roof and fix the leaf. I feel like that's an actual added advantage that you're giving to your child.
Definitely.
Whatever happens.
Agreed. Ayanda, we're talking now on the radio and it's important to have these conversations, but I'm curious about the other spaces that we don't have access to as broadcasters and as people. What are the other areas that these conversations should be taking place? How do we enforce the mindset shift outside of, the water cooler conversations? Where else do these shifts need to happen besides on air and at home? Where else are these conversations not being had?
I mean, I hear a lot of this concept of locker room talk where there's usually credit given to, say, for instance, boys, maybe saying things that are very sometimes hurtful, sometimes things that are very, misogynistic. So I would say, it's maybe a responsibility for everyone who is almost like who to become an advocate. So if you're an amazing young man who's grown up and that women, for instance, in your family are resilient, they're tough, they're able to do anything, and you can trust them with the word. And you find yourself in spaces where someone is saying something that's misogynistic, you want to be the one who's saying, no, listen, what I was far to say, even if you have a daughter, if you have a sister, stand up for us, be an ally for us. And I suppose it goes the other way around. I know there's a lot of stigma around boys are this, men are this. We as women also have to stand up for some of the situations because you also as a woman, you have a brother, I have a son. I would not want to go around and give credit to say all these things that are being said about men and say those things are okay. Because I've been raising my son and I have the expectation that he will become a father one day. He's an amazing brother to his sister, and he'll be somebody's boyfriend and husband and all of those things. So it's important that we start in our small little spaces. And then as we bring our children up, we need to be very open about those conversations. We need to be telling our children and not sweeping it under the floor when we see those things maybe play out in TV, whatever's happening in our lives, we see those experiences, we see someone being rude to someone because they're a woman, because they're a man. You want to bring those things up and talk to your children about it as parents. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are putting we're removing that as part of our stigma.
Fascinating insights. Thank you so much, Ayanda Tetyana, our parenting expert this afternoon on The Upside, chatting about the evolving nature of gender roles in the household.